The terminology Caucasian, it's been used incorrectly many times. It was actually coined by a German anthropologist by the name of Johann Blumenbach. And the reason he called the white people the Caucasians is because when he went to Georgia, he was so astonished by the beauty of the people. So he decided to call the entire white people Caucasian. But as a matter of fact, when we look at the Caucasians from a genetic perspective, as we can see, the Caucasian people actually formed their own cluster. It's one of the most genetically diverse places in Eurasia. This is a map of the haplogroups that are found in the Caucasus. And as we can see, the Azerbaijanis are predominantly J2. When we go into Georgia, it's predominantly G. When we look into the Armenians, they're predominantly R1b. So there's a lot of genetic diversity amongst them. So for us to come up with a generalization about these people is an oversimplification. But there is one thing that unites all Caucasian people, and I suppose this is the very basis of this live. It's that all Caucasian people have genetic similarities when we look at their DNA from a Neolithic standpoint. So over here, I've actually got a breakdown of 3 Caucasian populations. I've got the Caucasians, I've got the Chechens, and I think down below, I've got the Ossetians. 3 distinct Caucasian groups, linguistically distinct, but the one thing that unites them all is this Caucasus hunter-gatherer component. What is this Caucasus hunter-gatherer component? This Caucasus hunter-gatherer component is the characteristic genome that embodies the people of the Caucasus. And I've actually got a Caucasus hunter-gatherer reconstruction. This is a man. The Caucasian hunter-gatherers existed in the Caucasus region around 12,000 years ago during the Neolithic. And they provide the strongest genetic input to the populations all over the Caucasus. What's remarkable about the Caucasian hunter-gatherers is that their DNA, as we can see, it peaks in the Caucasus because that's where they're from. But it's actually found all across Eurasia. It's found all the way in the UK. I've had the opportunity to look into, 5-6 clients from the UK, and they've all had components of the CHG component. Even me as an Iranian, I'm like 12-13% Caucasus hunter-gatherer. And now I want to go a little bit more in depth into who these CHG people were. Now the CHG, the Caucasus hunter-gatherers themselves, were a synthesis of 2 ancestral populations. You had the ancient North Eurasians, which were a people group that were found all across Siberia, and an interesting genetic source known as Zudzuana. We don't actually know what Zudzuana was, but we think that it was related to Middle Eastern populations. And that's what Caucasus hunter-gatherer is. Now, these 2 populations mixed together close to 24,000 years ago to create the CHG populations that we know today. And just to make reference over here, for example, when we look into the Caucasians, 38% Caucasus hunter-gatherer. The Chechens, 37.5. The Ossetians, I can't actually read what is written there, but they're very high in that component as well. So we've just established that the main genetic component within all Caucasian, the thing that unites them really is this Caucasus hunter-gatherer component. Now, if we actually look at this breakdown in more detail, we actually see the second highest component is Pontic-Caspian steppe. What is that? Pontic-Caspian steppe. The Pontic-Caspian steppe people coincide with the Indo-Europeans, and I've actually got a reconstruction of a man who belonged to the Yamnaya culture, which is known as the progenitor of the Indo-European cultures. But what's very interesting is that the Yamnaya actually existed with a Caucasian culture known as the Maikop culture. And they played a very fundamental role in the entire ethnogenesis of the Caucasian people, and their art is very characteristic. This bull is very characteristic of Caucasian art. But what's interesting to note, and this is the reason why we actually see Caucasus hunter-gatherer DNA all across Eurasia, is that the Indo-Europeans themselves were actually a synthesis between Caucasus hunter-gatherer mixing with Eastern hunter-gatherer to form the Yamnaya, to form the Indo-Europeans. And that's why the genetic legacy of these people that are found in this isolated place that spans between Europe and Asia, their genetics actually found very widespread across the world. The last component that's found within the Caucasians, that's actually found amongst all Caucasian populations, is the Anatolian Neolithic farmer component. And this is a reconstruction of an Anatolian man, and that's because the Caucasians had interactions with Anatolian people. Caucasian culture is one of the most beautiful cultures that I've had the opportunity and the pleasure of researching. I love learning about their culture because despite the differences, they have many similarities. It's been a region that has been under constant conflict, conquest, and subsequently it's produced one of the most unique and beautiful places in the world. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this caffeine-fueled live.